Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Councillor Joyce Crooks, Chair of the Planning Committee, and I'll be chairing this meeting. I'd like to welcome you all to the Planning Committee, which is a meeting to determine the planning applications that are on the agenda. To my right is Vice Chair Councillor Moore, and we have the Assistant Planning Director of Planning and Regeneration to the left of me, and the Planning Officer also. Members of the committee are sitting to either side of the room, and opposite me are the Executive Member for Planning and Ward Councillors who are not members of the committee and members of the public who have registered to speak. I will start with a few ground rules and some information about the procedure for those in attendance. Could everyone please switch off their mobile phones or put them onto silent? I know emotions run high and people feel strongly, but I would be grateful if you would avoid clapping, jeering or booing during the meeting. And please be respectful to one another despite differing opinions. I'd be grateful if all speakers could keep to their allotted time, and speakers may leave after their application has been determined. We will take the applications in the order that will be announced when we get to that part of the agenda. Those with speakers registered will be taken first. Officers will introduce the report and then speakers will be invited to address the committee. Members will then ask questions of officers and debate of the report, and a member will then propose a motion which may be the same as the officer's recommendation or may differ. If the motion is seconded, a vote will be taken. Voting will be by the way of show of hands and by a simple majority, unless a recorded vote is requested by members of the committee or the head of planning, with the chair having the casting vote where required. Item 1. Do we have any apologies for absence and any substitutions, please, Becky?
Apologies from Councillor Richard Allen with Councillor Simmons substituting, Councillor Walker with Councillor Williams substituting, and Councillor Webber-Jones with Councillor Hodgkins substituting.
Thank you very much. Item 2, minutes of the last meeting. Are you happy that they are an accurate record of the last meeting? Somebody like to propose? Thank you, Councillor Fleming, and Councillor Mullaney seconded. The motion has been moved and seconded. Could all those in favour of approving the minutes please raise their hand now and keep it raised until Becky has indicated she has counted. That is unanimous. The minutes are therefore approved. Item 3, we have no urgent business. Item 4, do we have any declarations of interest? No? Thank you very much. Item 5, there are no questions in accordance with Procedure Rule 12. Item 6, decisions delegated at previous meeting. Could I ask Chris please to update us?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Of the 3 decisions that were taken at the meeting last month, 2 of those decisions have been issued. The other one is still pending the Section 106 legal agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the planning applications, and we'll be taking the applications in this order. Item 8 and then item 7. Please note that the application 23/00982/OUT Keats Lane, Earl Shilton has been withdrawn from the agenda and will not be discussed at this meeting. So, item 8 is application 25/00700/FUL 215 Leicester Road, Fieldhead. Could I please ask Matt please to present the report?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This application seeks full planning permission for works to include the resurfacing and installation of lighting columns to the existing access track from Leicester Road to the adjacent land. Just to provide some background on this application, it relates to a major development in Charnwood Borough for the development of up to 115 dwellings, and an associated application to upgrade the pathway with resurfacing and lighting columns for the section of pathway under Charnwood's jurisdiction. The corresponding Charnwood footpath application was approved at their planning committee on November 13th last year, and the outline application for 115 homes was approved at committee last week on the 5th of Feb. The application is being presented at committee due to a member call-in and due to the number of objections received. On to the next slide. The application site forms part of an existing vehicular and pedestrian access track that covers an area of approximately 50 square metres. The access track connects Leicester Road at its western point and runs for approximately 80 metres to a gated access into an existing open area of land, which was granted outline planning permission for up to 115 homes, as previously mentioned. The access track curves to the north, giving vehicular access to a residential dwelling, which is number 215 Leicester Road. And the existing track is bordered by timber fencing that encloses gardens either side and is currently surfaced with concrete hard standing. The first red line plan on the next slide shows the application site boundary for Hinckley and Bosworth, and the second slide shows the red line boundary for the corresponding Charnwood section of footpath, and the blue line to the north and northeast encompasses the approved housing development. So the proposal would involve the resurfacing of the existing track with asphalt and would add 4 lighting columns at 15 to 17 metre intervals. The existing hedgerow would be trimmed to maintain the width of the track, and to the east you can see the existing vehicular access to number 215, as well as the additional lighting columns and CCTV camera, which is approved under the Charnwood application. The purpose of the application is to provide a safe and sustainable transport link between the approved development site and the amenities and services within Markfield. In terms of the principle of development, this is acceptable as it lies within the settlement boundary of Markfield and aligns with the approved Charnwood applications. Moving on to the design, the track is in a semi-urban location and would be surfaced in asphalt, which would improve the appearance and usability of the track, whilst corresponding well with the residential character of the area. In terms of the proposed lighting columns, these are appropriately designed and would be viewed in the context of existing light sources from neighbouring dwellings and street lighting on the A50 to the southwest. Turning on to neighbouring amenity, the closest dwellings to the site are located adjacent to the access track and are numbers 213A and 217, as well as number 215. Whilst it is acknowledged that there would be increased levels of pedestrian activity, it is not considered that they would lead to unacceptable levels of noise and disturbance for existing residents. In terms of the proposed lighting, the next slide includes a light spill diagram, which shows that light will be distributed downwards and there will be a limited degree of spill. The lighting would emit a warm white temperature light for the purposes of wayfinding only and would be controlled by a solar time clock. So this would turn on at dusk and shut off at dawn. The Hinckley and Bosworth Environmental Health team have been consulted and have no objections to the proposed lighting arrangement. Conditions have been included to ensure that the lighting arrangement is carried out in accordance with the lighting strategy and for the lighting not to be installed until a maintenance and servicing plan has been agreed. Moving on to highways, vehicles from the new approved development to the north will be restricted from using the shared path by bollards, so the use of this track will be restricted for pedestrian, cyclists and access for number 215 only. The local highway authority has no objections to the proposal, indicating that a track width of 3.4 metres at its narrowest is appropriate for a pedestrian cycle connection. Officers consider that due to the low level of vehicular traffic using the track, meetings between pedestrians and vehicles will not be frequent and can be negotiated by waiting for cars to pass by staying to one side. Vehicles would be travelling at low speeds given the narrowness of the track, and visibility is unrestricted by foliage or blind spots. Turning to ecology, so biodiversity net gain requirement does apply, and as it is not achievable on site, this requirement will be met through a biodiversity gain arrangement on the wider site within Charnwood's jurisdiction. In terms of potential impacts by the lighting, County Ecology confirmed that this is not a foraging or commuting route for bats, and the downward lighting removes any concerns in terms of habitat impacts. So to conclude, the proposed track would provide key connectivity to Markfield and encourage prospective residents to use sustainable modes of travel for their day-to-day needs. The proposals would not cause any harm to visual amenity, highway safety, neighbouring amenity or biodiversity, and the proposal complies with the relevant policies of the development plan and the NPPF. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions.
Thank you very much, Matt. We have Objector David Hyde to speak on this application. Mr Hyde, please start when you're ready.
Chair, Council members, thanks for allowing me to speak. Members must approach this in one of two ways, either a private driveway or a highways adoptable standard. Whether you approach this, whichever way you approach this, the conclusion is the same. It's treated as a private driveway, and planning cannot rely on informal behaviour to manage safety, particularly when children and vulnerable users are foreseeable. It's treated as a route subject to highway standards. The transport evidence is submitted does not demonstrate the route can operate safely. Either way, the proposal fails to demonstrate safety in operation, not just on paper. This route is a private driveway with retained vehicle access. And because it's private land, children can lawfully use bikes, scooters, e-bikes and e-scooters from the proposed new development, and no one's there to manage or stop them. The users are entirely foreseeable, and the route is also being actively promoted as a pedestrian and cycle use by the developer. The access from Leicester Road is short on a closed bend where there's also cars parked either side. None of this real-world risk is assessed in the officer's report and supporting transport information. Under the NPPF paragraph 130, development must create a safe environment whether land is public or private. The officer's report assumes ideal conditions in reality to the driveway. It's tightly bound by fences on both sides, affected by parking vans near the entrance, without passing places, without escape for space for children and vulnerable users, and also fails to take in the measurements for the light posts. So at the moment you see a maximum width, a minimum width of 3.4. They haven't taken in the account for the distance of the lamppost off that measurement. The lighting evidence relies on the wrong road. The lighting technical report contains a fundamental error. At paragraph 6.3.1, the report refers to members to the figure 5 as in lighting context. However, this is Markfield Lane, not Leicester Road. That has upright columns, where Leicester Road has 4 to 5 lights down the whole thing, based on electrical wooden poles. The baseline is used, therefore, factually incorrect, and the impact introducing on the line of light columns along the driveway is materially understated. This means that that footpath will stand out like a sore thumb. It has more lights down it than the rest of the road. The driveway provides a sole vehicle access to 215 Leicester Road. There's no sweep path analysis, no emergency vehicle tracking, no assessment for conflict for emergency vehicles to use in case 215 has a fire. In an emergency, vehicles cannot rely on pedestrians waiting or reversing. This is a serious and underaddressed safety concern. The residential amenity impacts is real and unassessed. The driveway runs immediately alongside existing homes. The proposal would introduce lighting just above fence height, light spill into gardens, kitchens and children's bedrooms, increased noise from pedestrian use and children congregating. This includes the house at 215, which has recently been turned into a children's home.
Mr Hyde, I'll just remind you that we do have another objector, Dr McGashee, as well, so if you can wrap your section up, please.
This basically contravenes local plan for policy DM10. There's also a planning application which was part of CHARM, which was P221031. The police have actually stated that this does not fit the good design guide, and that was stated in April and May 2025. This is encouraged by the Council on the Duty Section 17 of the Crime Disorder Act 1998, yet the committee report does not address this advice at all. Hinckley and Bosworth conflict with Hinckley and Bosworth local plan policy. The proposal is different conflict with Hinckley and Bosworth local plan. DM17, safe and sustainable access and operation has not been determined, and DM10, poor layout, inappropriate lighting and harm to residents' amenity. The failures arise from a fundamental constraint on this site and cannot resolve by any of these conditions. I respectfully ask the committee to refuse these applications.
Thank you, Mr Hyde. We also have another objector, Dr McGissey. Please start when you're ready.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm the resident at 215. We're directly affected by this proposal, by this proposed access, and would like to highlight the practical safety concern and the impact on the daily life. At two meetings at Charnwood, a question was raised as, what is a small development? The 5 pedestrians at peak time is based on a small development, which is less than 10 dwelling. This proposal is 115 dwelling. I have used the same model and submitted the result to you, and even on 50% usage, which is very conservative, the figure is 55, 11 times higher. This shared arrangement will create regular conflict. In practice, users will often be forced to squeeze past the vehicle, creating a high risk for contact with wing mirror or bodywork, personal injury, damage to property, dispute between resident and drivers. I would also note that the application incorrectly described the location of the access between 215 and 217. The actual pathway is between 213A and 217 and is serving 215, which is our resident. We have a long-established right of free and uninterrupted access, which will be affected by this proposal. In summary, the proposal significantly underestimates usage and introduces unsafe, impractical, and likely to result in ongoing conflict. Given the scale of the development and the severe constraint of this access, the proposal does not provide a safe or suitable arrangement, and I respectfully ask the committee to refuse this application due to the unacceptable impact on existing residents, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Magissi. We have the agent now to speak on this item, Lexi Dones. Please start when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Lexi Dones and I'm here from Pegasus Group. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant today. The applicant are Davidson's Developments, a family-owned 5-star rated house builder with a track record of delivering quality housing throughout Leicestershire. The site forms part of an existing vehicular and pedestrian access track from Leicester Road and will provide a footpath and cycleway to serve the new housing development located within the boundary of Charnwood Borough Council. The application was approved by their planning committee last week on the 5th of February. The track will provide a secondary access to the site, connectivity to Markfield, encouraging the new residents to walk and cycle to local facilities. The track will be lit and benefit from CCTV cameras that are designed to protect existing and new residents' amenity, whilst ensuring those using the track feel safe. A chicane barrier or similar will be installed in between the housing development and the track to ensure there is no opportunity for the track to be used by vehicles wanting to access the site, the details of which are to be secured through the Reserve Matters planning application to Charnwood Borough Council. Subject to suitable planning conditions, there are no highway objections from the County Council with regard to use or safety, no amenity objections from the Council's Environmental Health Officer, and no ecology objections from the Council's biodiversity team. I would therefore request that the committee agrees with the officer recommendation to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lexi. We have the Ward Councillor, Councillor Harris, to speak next. Please start when you're ready, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee members. I'm speaking today to object to this application, even though officers have recommended the approval. First, this is being presented as a small, simple proposal, but it's not. This access path only exists because of the 115 home development in Charnwood. The officer report even refers to that development to explain why this path is needed. So this isn't a minor standalone change, it's part of a much bigger scheme. Looking at it separately hides the full impact. Second, the effect on neighbours has been played down. This path will turn a quiet, mainly private drive into a busy route for walkers, cyclists and vehicles. used by people from a large new estate. This will mean there'll be more noise, more disturbance, less privacy, and greater worry of antisocial behaviour. There are everyday long-term impacts, and they conflict with policy DM10, which is meant to protect residents' amenity. Thirdly, the lighting will completely change the area. It's currently unlit. The plan adds 4 lighting columns that stay on from dusk till dawn. Even if they are warm or downward facing, they still shine into nearby gardens, change the look and feel of the area, and make the area feel more urban rather than part of the edge of the village. This goes against policy DM10 and the Markfield Neighbourhood Plan policy M10, which both aim to protect local character and dark skies. Fourthly, there are highways and safety concerns. The route does not meet ideal width standards. Pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles would all have to share the same narrow space. Manual for Streets specifically warns against this kind of layout. Officers say traffic will be low, but that cannot be guaranteed. Deliveries, visitors, carers and emergency access will still happen. Planning decisions need certainty, not assumption. This fails to meet policy DM17, which requires safe access for everyone. There is also a real safety concern where pedestrians and cyclists would emerge onto Leicester Road. Visibility and conflicts risks have not been properly resolved. Finally, too much is being left to planning conditions, lighting, controls, bollards, maintenance, biodiversity mitigation and more. Conditions cannot turn an unacceptable development into an acceptable one. To conclude, this proposal would harm the living conditions of nearby residents. It does not provide a safe or suitable access route, and it conflicts with several key planning policies. For these reasons, I cannot support the offer's recommendation, and I ask members to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. We also have the County Councillor for the area, Councillor O'Shea. You have 2 minutes, Councillor O'Shea. Please start when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, members. I want to focus on the technical and policy evidence. The access is mischaracterised in the officer report. Although the officer report repeatedly refers to this route as a cycleway or pedestrian and cycle route, the description of development for the application explicitly confirms retained vehicular access. This means that the route will remain a private driveway with an unrestricted right-of-way serving existing residential property. Under local plan policies DM17 and DM6, access arrangements must be safe and sustainable in practice. Treating this primary as a cycleway downplays the fact that pedestrians and vehicles must use the space at the same time, which is central to whether the design works. Widths are assumed, not demonstrated, and the transport assessment shows what is missing. The officer report confirms access is approximately 3.5 metres wide at its narrowest point. To justify this, the applicant relies on pedestrian space standards from the Manual of Streets set out explicitly in the transport assessment submitted in support of this application and relied upon for the linked outline application P22-10312. In paragraphs 5 and 6 of the transport assessment, illustrative stilettos are shown: a single pedestrian of 0.75 metres, a wheelchair of 0.9 metres, an adult with a wheelchair or pushchair of 1.5 metres, and an adult with a child of 1.2 metres. These figures assume clear, unobstructed, unsafe width. However, no drawing shows effective usable width with the lighting columns installed. No safety clearances are shown. A fixed electrical pylon partway along the driveway is omitted from all plans, and there is no assessment of pedestrians, pushchair or wheelchair users passing vehicles on a live driveway. The transport assessment therefore assumes safety rather than demonstrating it. This design is a failure under policies DM10, DM17 and the MPPF paragraph 110. Behaviour is relied upon instead of design. The officer report suggests pedestrians and vehicles can negotiate the space by pedestrians waiting.
Councillor O'Shea, can you wind up please now? Yeah. You've had more than 2 minutes.
Yeah. I'll end up by saying that the baseline is wrong, and I would request that the officers consider this and members refuse this application. It's an accident waiting to happen.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Shea. We'll now debate the item, including moving and seconding it. Councillor Bray.
Yes, Chair. I've got a couple of questions and then some comments to make. But before I do that, I just want to say that, upon the record, I think Charwood have made the wrong decision on this application. I don't think it should have been. It should have been approved. I don't like these cross-boundary applications, although this one is more simple than some of the other ones we've had on there, which have literally been the red line has been the cross-boundary. So we are literally just talking about a very small part of this. And I don't like it. I'd be interested to know where all the Section 106 money gets, because I know which communities are going to get the impact, but I know which council will get the goodies. So I did write on behalf of, following representations from residents, I did write to the leader of Charnwood Borough Council, asking him to take account of the concerns raised. But I do have some questions, and then I'll come back in once I've had those, perhaps make some comments if that's okay. So comments were made, I think, by Matt about sort of this providing a sustainable transport road. So just clear up for me, just once and for all. If we were to refuse this application, would this make the entire scheme, including the bits in Charwood, unsustainable and therefore question whether the permission should have been given in the first place? Secondly, if we were to refuse this, would it affect the delivery of the housing at all? Because I don't know whether I'm just missing something from the comments I've just heard, but as far as I'm concerned, as far as I can read from the papers, if we refuse this tonight, all that will happen is that potentially people could still use that track, except they'll end up with wet feet and probably have to carry a torch. Because that is as far as I'm understanding it, or I'm misunderstanding it, this is not going to stop anything other than a little bit of concrete and a few lights. Now, I have got some comments I want to make about the lighting, but if I could have answers to those questions first, then I'll come back, Chair, if that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Excuse me. I'll take the questions first. Matt may come in with some further detail as well. Just to pick up on your first point raised about the Section 106, because I'm sharing my screen, I can't get the Charnwood Committee report up on my screen, but just to say that the key contributions are coming to Hinckley and Bosworth. So, for instance, the education contribution for primary education is coming to the Markfield Primary School. Secondary is going outside of the area because that's where the secondary school is. But primary education is coming to Markfield, as is the relevant NHS contribution as well. So the key contributions there, if you like, are coming to our patch, to Markfield. With regards to the scheme in general, so I suppose the two key plans is the one that's up on the screen now with our red line plan, and then the second one, if I flick to the next one, is then showing the red line specifically for the track, if you like, the walking cycling track that Charnwood have determined as well, within the rest of the housing, as Matt pointed out in the presentation, within the wider Charnwood blue line there as well. So all we are considering, sorry I flipped the wrong way, all we are considering tonight is just what's within that red line only. So as you mentioned in your comments, so previously we've had cross-boundary applications that have come to this committee, not a million miles away from this location. The difference with those cross-boundary applications is the red line for those applications effectively crosses over the boundary. Hence, cross-boundary application, red line crosses over both. Both councils have to make a decision on the same application, and that's what's happened with these other ones. This is not the case with this application. So the red line that includes all the housing development does not cross over to Hinckley and Bosworth with this site. So Charnwood have determined that application in November, and then again last Thursday evening, and they've resolved to approve that application. All we're considering tonight then is just that red line that's on your screen there, and that's just the track itself. If members were to refuse the application tonight, well, first of all, the applicant would most likely appeal, and in our view, hence the recommendation for approval, would most likely be successful on that appeal. Irrespective of that, so irrespective of your decision tonight and irrespective of any appeal decision, in our view, it's quite likely that the development would still go ahead anyway. So, first of all, Charnwood would have to potentially reconsider the application at their own committee on the basis that whatever your decision is tonight. So, if you were to refuse, Charnwood then will have to take it back, purely on the basis that their recommendation includes a unilateral undertaking with regards to this access track. So they would have to reconsider on that basis. It's unlikely, in my professional view, that they would then seek to refuse the application from their point of view. So they've already considered the application twice now, 4 houses, 115 houses, all vehicular access to the north. So you can see the bit of the blue line there that goes through. So that's what they are considering, and they've resolved twice now to approve that application. Also key, if I flick back to the other red line, they've then approved a separate application to just that bit of the top of the access track. So you can see that very small area of red line with the red dot on the screen there. So that's what they've approved as well, and that includes the CCTV and that includes the bollards. Details to come later, but that's what that application approves. So coming back to the point you mentioned in your comments, if members to refuse tonight, is it still going to happen? Is this track still going to be used for pedestrian and cycling access anyway? My answer would be yes. So effectively, even if we were to refuse, irrespective of any appeal, my view would be that the site's still going to come forward. The applicant has already agreed with Charnwood Borough Council that there's an expedited application process. So rather than the normal 3 years, which if it was hers, it'd most likely be 3 years, instead they're coming back with a reserve matters application within 12 months. So effectively they're looking to develop the site very quickly, so positive in terms of land supply. And effectively, any future residents of that site would then benefit from the first few metres. I must admit I don't know the scale, but effectively the first few metres of the track surfaced nicely with lighting, with CCTV, with bollards, and then as soon as they cross the imaginary boundary into our patch, they would then, as you suggested, get wet feet or not have quite as nice surface track and without the lighting. So effectively that's what would happen if members to refuse the application. In terms of sustainability, you know, the key thing is it would provide a walking and cycling route from the site down. That's the reason that it's proposed here. So there's no vehicular access proposed other than retention of the vehicular access for the existing homeowner who you've heard from this evening as well. So they would retain their existing vehicular access. With regard to the conflict that was referred to, I think, by all the speakers, yes, there will be a conflict. So there will be a vehicular and pedestrian and vehicular and cycling conflict. However, we have to consider the scale of that conflict and the risk of that conflict. And given that there is only ever one dwelling accessed off that driveway, that's the current, you've heard from the owner of that dwelling this evening, that's all that's there. There's no further dwellings to be accessed from that driveway. Then therefore the vehicles going up and down that track are accessing one dwelling only. If this was a track that accessed multiple numbers of dwellings, I can't give you an answer for how many dwellings, but if that access track was accessing multiple numbers of dwellings, then therefore you would have cars constantly coming and going down there and clashing with walking and cycling access, then I think it's unlikely we would be making the same recommendation. There would be different matters to consider, but at the moment it's only ever one dwelling that would clash in terms of vehicle movements with any walking and cycling access, which is why, hence there's no objections from the County Council Highways and no objections from our environmental health team with regards to the lighting that's proposed as well. Hopefully that answers your questions.
Yeah, it does, thank you. Just a comment to the Chair, if you don't mind. So last night we sat in here and we discussed the excellent piece of work that Scrutiny have done about adopting various things on sites, and one of the complaints that was made about, we don't get footpaths finished, we don't get lights put in. I think there was one in your patch, Chair, where your colleague, Councillor Bull, complained about lack of lighting in him. So it would be a bit difficult, really, in light of having adopted that policy last night, for us to come here tonight and start talking, complaining about when a developer is offering these things on a site. Look, I think the problem we've got here is I think there are people who think that by us taking a view tonight that this should be refused, and I understand perfectly why, that it's going to somehow scupper this development. Well, it's not. I've just heard that from our chair, and from our assistant director. Sorry, and if we go to appeal on this, we've just heard from the assistant director that another planning authority has considered this multiple times. Our own officers have assessed this as it is. We've got no objections from highways, drainage, ecology, pollution, trees, archaeology, police, anybody else saying there's a safety issue. I just don't see what grounds we have got to refuse. I think this is a silly application. I think it should be thrown out. The wider scheme, I mean, rather than this. But specifically what we're being asked to look at here tonight on the agenda, we've just got nowhere to go on it. And I understand the resident raised, and I'm just, again, if Chris could clarify this, that there is some conflict about rights of way and other things like that. My experience of sitting here for 20 years tells me we can't consider these things at a planning committee meeting. These are not material planning considerations. These are ones that are going to get a lawyer rich somewhere, but it's not something that we can deal with. I'm correct in that. I'm right in thinking. And finally, so you know, I do have some sympathy because where my parents lived on the estate that Councillor Lynch designed in Burbage, I used to get my ear bent all the time when I was the county councillor for Burbage about lights shining into bedroom windows and things on there. Is there, you know, and there's ability of for shades and things to be put in to make sure that these things don't happen? Have we got that covered in the relevant conditions? Because if we are on those, I've got nowhere to go other than to move the acceptance of the report, Jen.
Thank you, Councillor. So, yeah, just on your first point with regards to rights of way and property deeds, then that's not a planning matter. It's not something that we can consider here this evening. With regards to the light, so I've put on there the light spill diagram. So effectively, all the lights proposed are downward-facing lights, so they would light up the track only. Effectively, there's not considered to be any light spill into neighbouring residential curtilage, so to gardens, dwellings, windows, for instance. The point, I believe it was Councillor Harris raised, is a valid one, that the lighting will be visible. You know, at the end of the day, it will light up the area. There's no doubt about that. But in terms of impact, the lighting impact on dwellings, we've reviewed, our environmental health team reviewed, and obviously at the other end, Charnwood Borough Council have reviewed, and there's no objections from any of those people with regards to the amenity impact of the lighting.
I've got nowhere to go other than to move the report, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Lynch? Thank you very much. Are there any further people wishing? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. So the fact that the accessway is already used by pedestrians and cyclists and the existing property, how much weight would that carry on appeal if committee were to refuse it? Is that a significant factor in your opinion? And could you comment please on the issues that Mr. Hyde raised regarding the safety of children and vulnerable users? Is that something that is that a planning consideration? Just a few of those things you said, please. I mean, I totally understand where, you know, what's been said by various councillors and the resident, but it's understanding what grounds we could refuse this on if we wanted to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Chris.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. So just on to pick up on your first point about the use of the track, so it is already used by the homeowner who you've heard from this evening, so they use it as their vehicle right of way to their own property. So that's the existing use. There isn't currently a walking cycling use of the track, so that's not there currently, but that's what's proposed. So if I flick back to that one there, so effectively Charnwood Borough Council have resolved to approve the 115 dwellings within the blue line and resolved to grant permission for the surfacing, lighting, CCTV bollards at the top of the track there as well. So effectively that would create a new access from the development to the top of the existing track. So the point I was trying to make earlier in response to Councillor Bray's comments is that irrespective of our bit within the red line on that previous slide, there will be a new access created for walking cycling use from the site. So that's not currently there, but that is what's already approved onto the existing driveway. In terms of the safety of users, again, it comes back to that point about there will be conflict. We're not suggesting there won't be. You know, there is the possibility of the homeowner obviously using their own vehicular access. That's there already. That's not proposed to change. I can't remember if it was Councillor Harris or Councillor Shea mentioned about there will be, as any homeowner does, you have your normal deliveries to and from your property. That will still remain as well as in terms of a vehicular access. So there will be vehicles that go up and down that road. The key thing being it is and only ever will be one property, so access to one property. So whilst there will be use of that track then for walking and cycling in future, the conflict will only obviously be in relation to one person's property, and therefore one lot of vehicles going up and down that road. If it was multiple dwellings, we may be considering something different or a different recommendation, but it's only ever a low risk in our view and a low risk of any conflict at any one time. Thank you.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Allen?
When you're saying conflict, are you including safety concerns within that conflict, not just annoyance or noise, disturbance? We're actually talking about safety of pedestrians versus vehicle conflict. I suppose my thoughts are, is that acceptable or not?
Thank you. Yes, I was referring to safety in terms of pedestrians. So we think that because it's only one dwelling, we think in our view the risk is acceptable, the risk is low. But again, because it comes back to only being one dwelling accessed off that track. So in our view, it has been assessed by us, it's been assessed by County Highways, assessed by Environmental Health Team, and twice now been assessed by Charnwood Borough Council. And in the view of all of those bodies, it's considered to be acceptable.
Chris, can I ask, on the section that's been approved by Charnwood of that track, you mentioned bollards. That will stop vehicles going down there, so there won't be any vehicles from the new development coming through that way. It will just be that particular one dwelling, number 50, number 2, yeah, that, so there won't be any vehicles coming through from the development.
Thank you, Chair. My point is that there will be increased pedestrian movement, cyclists, encouraging sustainable movement to the village from the site. So there'll be a lot more foot traffic, even though there's just the one resident that will be using their vehicular access. Thank you.
Yes, but surely, looking at it that way, if they're going to have, part of it is going to be lit and with CCTV cameras, they're going to start to come down that track. If we refuse our end and that development still goes ahead, those people walking down there are going to be walking down in the dark and on puddles and goodness knows what. So what's the alternative? Councillor Cope.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me for overstating the obvious, but humour me. We've got a planning application here for 115 dwellings which are approved. Consent has been given, so I'm correct there. So irrespective of what we do tonight, and of course we've got part of that track that's got consent on it, so it will be used irrespective. So I have a failure to understand what we're arguing about, because if we don't do it, it'll get used. If we do it, it'll get used. So, you know, I'm just a little bit confused. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cope. If there are no further speakers, we've had a motion to approve the application, moved by Councillor Bray and seconded by Councillor Lynch. We will now take the vote. If you are voting for approval of the application, please raise your hand now and keep it raised until Becky has counted. Thank you. Against? The application, therefore, is approved in line with the officer's recommendation. Thank you very much indeed. We will now move on to item 7. Excuse me while I go back on my agenda. And this is application 25/01159/HOU 66 Leicester Road, Hinckley. Could I please ask Chris to present the report?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll just wait a second, just for the members of the public to clear. Thank you. I'll carry on. So yes, this item 7, 25/01159/HOU, we're at 66 Leicester Road in Hinckley. The proposal in front of you is two-storey rear extension above an existing single-storey extension, a loft conversion, a new front wall with electric gates, erection of an outbuilding, and together with internal alterations. As suggested on the slide, this is a revised scheme of a previous approval, so 25/00510HOU. So this application is in front of you this evening, members. It's been called in to be determined by Planning Committee, and there's been one objection to the proposal. So this application this evening, and this application number now in front of you, is the third application submitted to the council in the past year for the same property. These plans proposed here were submitted as part of the first application, the 25/510 on your screen, but the scheme was then amended following officers' advice that the application proposals were unacceptable on design grounds. So following amendments to a differently designed extension, which I'm going to come on to with the plans, that was then approved, and then the original plans have then been resubmitted with a further application which was refused late last year, and then now this is a further application again with the same plans to be determined by yourselves as Planning Committee. If I move on to the aerial view, so the property itself is there shown with the red dot on your slide. So it's a large detached dwelling in a larger plot and to the western side of Leicester Road. And as you can see, it's surrounded by other residential dwellings. Leicester Road immediately to the east side, and then Trafford Road we've pointed out as well, just to get your bearings of where we are on Leicester Road. Moving on to the red line site location plan. So again, there in the red line, just to point out, so dwellings to the west side and northwest side is the Rills, and again, just to point those out, because when we get to the plans, so certain aspects of the proposal can be viewed from properties at the Rills to that western side. So this is the proposed site plan. Just to point out, the existing south elevation is the front elevation of the property and not the east elevation, which faces back to Leicester Road, if you can get your bearings. As part of the proposal, the applicant wants to switch that round, so effectively turn the east elevation into the property frontage. So the extensions described here as rear extensions, but they're actually be read as a side extension from Leicester Road rather than a rear extension. The floor plans and elevations I'll come to and better show this in terms of the north and northeast elevation of the dwelling. The outbuilding, as part of the description, is proposed in the southwestern corner of the site. You can see there, shown in the dark grey rectangle, and then the proposed gates and walls are shown in the dark brown colour, access from Leicester Road as well. So moving on, these are the existing floor plans for the existing dwelling. So again, you can see that the current front elevation is to the south, so faces to the south, not to the east. And also just to point out, there's already sort of effectively an existing annex, so living space, bathroom, etc. on the ground floor as well. The existing property is 4 bedrooms in size. So moving on, these are the existing elevations of the property. So you can see the side elevation is in the bottom right hand corner, which is what currently faces Leicester Road, and as you'll see on new slides, this is then going to switch to be the front elevation of the property. So moving on, these are the proposed floor plans. So the north, right at the top is effectively where the proposed extension is. If you can make out, it's shown in a slightly darker grey there on the plans. So what's currently the existing annex space on the ground floor would become additional sitting room. Then on the first floor would be a new extension, which would be one larger sort of master bedroom with ensuite and dressing room, and then further there would be a lift access to then 2 more bedrooms shown in the second story, so the second floor over on the right hand side there of your slide. In total, the proposal is to go from a 4-bedroom property to a 7-bedroom property. So these are the proposed elevations. Effectively, to start off, so starting off in the top left, this is what was the previous front elevation, so south elevation, but now the front door changes into patio doors. The property's frontage facing Leicester Road is now to the bottom right, so effectively the front of the property switches from south to east. That's now in the bottom right-hand side of your slide there. From an officer point of view, we don't have any objections to that switch of the front of the property now to face the east, nor do we have any objections to that proposed elevation to face the east side to Leicester Road either. However, where officers do have concerns is the proposed elevation to the top right-hand side of your slide, and then this is shown then in the third picture down on the right-hand side in terms of the visual mock-up or the proposed visuals as well. Effectively, this would create a 3-storey extension, so a 2-storey extension above the existing single-storey extension, and this would be visible from properties in the Rills, which goes back to one of those original slides I showed you, so properties to the western side. The reason for our concerns is with regards to the visual impact of that extension, with the design and scale not considered to be in keeping with the existing dwellings, the existing dwelling in terms of its form, nor any surrounding dwellings either, and doesn't keep the existing features of the existing dwelling. From a neighbouring amenity perspective, because of the odd shape of the site and where the perspective of neighbouring dwellings are to the Rills, it would be quite close. So it would be 2 metres from the shared boundary to the neighbour at number 11, the Rills. However, the proposed first floor windows will overlook this plot at 11, the Rills. However, they will only overlook the parking area and with no habitable rooms of 11, the Rills looking back towards this. So effectively, there will be an overlooking impact, but not to any principal windows or any principal habitable rooms. If I move on to the next slide, so this shows the elevations of the approved scheme. So 25510 is the approved scheme from last year. So I'll come on to the floor plans as well, but this one was the amended scheme, and this one obviously was considered acceptable by officers and was therefore approved. There's no pre-commencement conditions on that approval, so effectively works can commence on this extant permission at any time, and so effectively there's no barriers or no blocks to this one coming forward. And it's also 7 bedrooms in size as well, so the extant permission is also 7 bedrooms as currently proposed. And the key difference being, again, if I draw your attention to the top right-hand slide, so if I jump back, that's what's now proposed. So the bottom right would be the new front elevation. It's very similar, so we don't have any objections to that. It's the top right-hand elevation where we currently have concerns compared to what's already approved. And as mentioned, that's the approved floor plan. So again, still 7 bedrooms, the different layout now being on that right-hand side. So the 2 bedrooms slightly smaller than now what's proposed, but although have 2 ensuite bathrooms rather than one bathroom. The ground floor and first floor are exactly the same in both, so there's no difference in ground floor and first floor. Moving on, so this is the gates and walls proposed. So these would be 1.5 metre brick walls with black gates. The section of walls would be limited either side of those 2 access points with the existing vegetation retained as well. This element of the scheme is the same as what's already been approved and is considered acceptable in design terms, so no objections from officers to these. And then likewise, if I move on to the outbuilding as well, so similarly, the outbuilding is the same as what's been approved plans and is shown there to be used for storage, modest in scale with materials to match the the existing dwelling and proposed extensions. It wouldn't be visible in the street scene, and given the location and size of it to where it would be on the plot, we consider this to be acceptable and no objections on amenity grounds to the outbuilding either. So whilst to conclude, so the gates, the walls and the outbuilding are considered to be acceptable. Officers do not consider the design of the extensions, particularly with the new rear elevation, is acceptable, as it does not respect the existing character of the dwelling and it would be visible from the surrounding streets. There is an extant permission, as I mentioned, so that is the same number of bedrooms, very similar living space, and to a design that is considered to be acceptable, with no pre-commencement conditions or any barriers for that being delivered on the site. The application is therefore recommended for refusal, this through being its incongruous appearance, it's an acceptable scale, mass and design, and it's considered to be contrary to policy DN10, together with contrary to the Good Design Guide and contrary to the MPPF. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. We have the applicant, Mr. Defu, I don't know whether I pronounced that correctly, to speak on this item. Please start when you're ready.
Thank you everyone for having me and giving me the opportunity to speak here. I'm just going to go off piste a little bit just to answer some of the questions that Chris just put forward. The original design that we put forward was going to be rejected regardless, and we were asking for it to be pulled to be voted on, so I could explain my sort of perspective. The original, we were advised to do that just so we can start with the outbuildings, start with the gates and everything, rather than holding anything up. But the original design is just not functional for us as a family, and I'm going to go into why. I'm going to very briefly explain, as Chris kindly did. We've got the top floor on our design with 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and the intention is we live together as a family. My parents, my kids, my wife, we all live as one family unit. The intention is to provide the upstairs floors of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom for them to have their own independence, their own privacy, their own dignity, and get away from the kids when they're not babysitting for us. The middle floor would be for me, my wife and my children, that we will have our own sort of independence there. And then ground floor is going to be for communal living. We all eat together, we all watch TV together, play together, etc. Key to this design, we've incorporated a lift because my parents are elderly. They're already struggling to get up the first floor at the moment now, and the approved design does not incorporate the lift, and it just wouldn't work for them as in their age and the way they are. We've asked for the design to go up so we can incorporate a lift and they would have access to the top floor themselves. From reading the report, I only really saw 2 concerns, and I think Chris has kindly addressed both of them. The first one I'd like to address is the neighbour, the objection from the Rills. There was a window that's facing towards his property. However, the property, I think is recognised in the report, his property is so backward facing that actually nothing's going to be overlooking. But we're not here to cause problems. We just want to have a life that we can also live comfortably in. It's a very easy fix for us. We've switched a bedroom and an ensuite, so the window that is facing the neighbour's garden will be a frosted bathroom window, so hopefully should overcome his objection. The other thing we did was we originally proposed a flat roof, just because that was what my architect designed, in order to give us the head height to allow the lift to go into the top floor with the extra mechanical space for my parents to be able to use. This was recommended by the planning team that it wouldn't be suitable with a flat roof. I went back with my architects. I'm trying to work as much as I can with the team, and we've, as advised, we were asked to put a pitched roof on it. We've put a small pitched roof on that still allows us to get the lift up to the top floor with the mechanical height there. So we've tried to work with the team to overcome the objections. However, it was still faced with, it wasn't approved basically, which is why we're here today. I have 4 points I would like to just make, and I'm going to try and be as quick as I can on these. One, as Chris kindly says, the property can be viewed, or this part of the extension can be viewed from the Rills. The Rills, however, to get to the Rills, you have to actively come off Leicester Road, go down Dean Road, which is a closed road, so it's not like you're going to be just passing it. From Dean Road, you have to then actively go across to the Rills and drive all the way to the very bottom of the Rills, which is a cul-de-sac. When you get to the bottom of the cul-de-sac, yes, I absolutely agree, you will see part of my property. The one thing the drawings don't do is give context to my actual land. We're very fortunate where we've got very high hedges and shrubbery, mature shrubbery all the way around that's very close to the property as well, which we're not removing. We love it. We've no intentions to remove it. From the Rills, only 3 properties will see part of this extension. Part of the extension, I've had no objections from them. I've unofficially had a compliment from one of them as we go for our evening walks, saying it would be a nice amendment to the area. That's off the record, so I appreciate that. Of the 3 properties that would see the extension, because of the height of my hedge and the level of the ground between their property and our property, you would only actually ever see the top windows and the roof. So from their perspective, it doesn't matter if it's the 2nd floor, 3rd floor or the 10th floor, they're only going to see 1 row of windows and a pitched roof, which is, from their perspective, keeping in the design of the property. Appreciate from my actual garden it will look different, but that's to help my parents be able to live with us. Thirdly, although we're proposing that it's not in keeping with the area, on Leicester Road, towards the school, there are 2 other properties with a very, very similar design, 3 stories and a very small pitched roof. The only difference between my property and their property is, to see this angle of my property, you have to actively go down these dead-end roads to get to the property, whereas these other 2 are on the Leicester Road and you can see them clear as day as you pass. Finally,
can you wind up, Mr. Dayhook?
Of course.
You've had your time, so if you can just finish.
Of course. Finally, in the same vein, appreciate that everybody's saying it's not in keeping with the Leicester Road area, the property design isn't, but I beg anybody to walk down the Leicester Road and tell me any property on the Leicester Road that is the same as each other. My design is only as different as every other property is different. So I really beg you to consider my design, the impact it's going to have on me and my family. We want this to be our forever home. We've put our heart and soul into it. And without the lift and the top floor, it doesn't work as a family and has a massive consequence for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will now debate the item, including moving and seconding it. Councillor Gibbons.
Thank you. This is in my ward, and went to go and meet with Mandeep and look at the plans and look at the surrounding area. He's very right. You walk down Leicester Road and virtually every house is different. There's some massive houses down there, all different sizes and shapes. And this is on a massive plot. It's not out of keeping for the size of the plot by any means. You go and look at the size of it, the big drive, the shrubbery that he meant. And although I can see why planning officers moved to reject this, I actually think it's a good plan. I think it works well for this family. I think it explained very well why he needs this. And I would vote to overturn the officer's decision and recommend to approve this application. Thank you.
Councillor Bray.
I'm happy to second Councillor Gibbons' his proposal. I assume in doing so we would leave any conditions to officers to determine.
The frosted window, I think Mandeep suggested, could be moved. I think that would be conditioned, and that would make a sensible condition to it.
But any other officers?
Any others?
On that basis, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Hodgkins.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was going to second this. No, I'm only joking. I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy. Yeah, I went out myself as well and had a look at the house Mandeep lives in. I think what he's doing is, I mean, it's a multi-layer family. They're all going to be in this one house, and the space you need to get away from your grandchildren, I can appreciate. It is a good design. I can understand also why the officers have took the view of looking at the roof line from the rills and things, but I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact as what it is. So yes, I also would like to approve this.
Thank you. Councillor James Moore.
I'm a bit surprised there's such enthusiasm for overturning the officer's recommendation on this one, because I don't think this can be ever seen as a piece of good design in the context of this particular landscape. I mean, I walk down Leicester Road pretty much every day and I know extremely well. And yes, there's a certain architectural eclecticism down that road, but on the whole, it's a very characterful area that reflects a particular period in Hinckley's development, really from the 1930s through to the 1950s. Very well designed, architect designed properties. It is true that in the past we have allowed perhaps some extensions and developments which perhaps push the boundaries, shall we say, in terms of the rules, and particularly of DM10 as we've discussed. But this seems to not so much push the boundaries as really completely ignore them. I can't really see how anyone could describe it as a design that's in keeping with the area or sympathetic with the design of the original house. In terms of the scale, it's clearly going to be dominant. And given that we've already got in a situation where the applicant has a 7-bedroom application that's been accepted, it seems strange that we're now being pushed to do a further development, which is clearly out of scale with the area around it. And certainly, you know, it is true that there are some very large houses on Leicester Road, but in general they're very well proportioned. They're not incongruously designed like this one. I have to say, I don't know if the architect was working on a dark night in a coal cellar or something. I just cannot understand how anyone can really put this forward as a good piece of practical design for an area like Leicester Road. Do they understand Leicester Road? Do they know the character of Leicester Road? To me, this is a very disappointing effort, and I think when it comes to issues like this, we should take the officers' recommendations seriously. They see an awful lot of applications, they see a lot of good designs, they've got professional qualifications, they're trying to take an objective view, and I think I'd certainly support the officers' recommendation in this case.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. Are we able to have because I know Mr Dafu, is it mentioned about the hedge height and how this would sort of prevent a certain amount of overlooking onto what he wants to do. Can we have a planning condition to keep a hedge there and at a certain height or in perpetuity, or is that not possible? Thank you.
Would you like to answer that, Chris?
Thank you, Councillor Allen. So I'm having to just make sure I'm on the right slide. This TV's about to flick off. So you can see there on the aerial view the existing vegetation, particularly to the east and the south boundaries there. So that is proposed to be kept with the exception of the so our TV's gone off. With the exception of the accesses and then the bit for the outbuilding as well. So if I go back to the site plan there, you can see where the outbuilding is proposed. Thanks, Rebecca. So all that landscaping is proposed to be kept, and we can keep that through a condition. In terms of maintaining it at a particular height, I think that condition probably wouldn't meet the tests. So I don't think we'd be able to condition a certain height of that. I would point out that all that landscaping, whilst to be kept and whilst we welcome it to be kept, is from Leicester Road and then to the south boundary only, rather than the northern boundary or the western boundary, which is where the views and the impact would be more relevant rather than the eastern and southern boundaries. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Got it. Okay, I've nearly forgotten what I was going to say now. I totally agree with Councillor Moore, actually, and considering that there is already an application for a large extension which includes the 7 bedrooms, and there is a lot of good in that one, there's a lot of good in this one, but I think we're sacrificing the design and the incongruity of the area. Why? When there is already permission for a 7 bedroom. So the family living has been accounted for already. So I totally agree with you about the design, Councillor Moore.
Are there, Councillor Bray?
Well, Chair, look, design is in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? And I'm more than happy as long as officers can condition anything that they feel appropriate, because obviously with getting the report of refusals, we haven't got conditions listed, so as long as that's delegated, I'm happy to support the motion moved by Councillor Gibbons and seconded by Councillor Hodgkins.
Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify my own understanding of the discussions that have been taking place, which we have to do very diligently. My understanding was that the front of the property was pretty much a design that was acceptable. It was what I would call the rear of the property, which has got the one at the top in the middle. And I understand the concerns about that, and I would have concerns about that were this on a smaller plot. But my question was going to be, bearing in mind the direction that that incongruity is facing, have we had any objections from the residents about the design that we perhaps should take it into account?
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Yes, so on the proposed plans, it's the bottom right-hand side. So if you can see my mouse, this one would become the front elevation facing Leicester Road, so effectively the eastern side, if you like. So that's acceptable. So if I jump back to the permitted plans, so there's very little difference, if you like. You know, there's the difference in the roof lights are added to what's been permitted, and if I jump back, there's a bit less bulk of mass in what's been permitted compared to what's proposed, but generally that one's considered acceptable. So yeah, so we don't have any concerns with regards to what's proposed to face Leicester Road, so you bottom right of your screen now. Instead, what we do have concerns about is the top right of your screen. So effectively that's now the new elevation that would face the rills, so it wouldn't face Leicester Road. If I go back to here, so you effectively have the site plan, this new elevation facing Leicester Road is not what we have concerns about, so that's very similar to what's been approved facing Leicester Road. So in terms of the views from the accesses here and views up and down Leicester Road, that elevation we're comfortable with, very similar to what's been approved. However, what we do have concerns is it's about the views from the rills. So I appreciate what the applicant said about it's not somewhere you normally drive to. We appreciate that. It's sort of down a cul-de-sac. You know, you or I wouldn't drive down there unless you're going to see someone, but there are still residents that live there. So it will still be visible to them over and above the existing boundary treatments as well. So there will be visual interaction, if you like. There will be views to and from. If I jump back to the elevation, that elevation top right there, so that will still be seen, and that's where our concerns come from. It's, you know, and even then it's only sort of the left-hand third of that elevation, admittedly, because that's where it goes up to 3 stories. With that, particularly the very high eaves height, is where our concerns come from. So the eaves are tucked just above that 3rd story height of windows, and very different in character to the existing dwelling. So that's why it's recommended for refusal. So if I jump back between, that's now the approved, so same orientation, so still we're looking at the top right of your screen. So that's what's been approved. So again, we've got a matching eaves line all the way along. And then if I jump up, that's where you can see the eaves just completely changes for that the left-hand third of the top right-hand picture, if that makes sense. So that's where our concerns are coming from. Does that answer your question?
The second part was, and have we received objections to that?
We have, yes. So we've received just the one objection, which is from a resident of the Rills. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Hopkins.
Just to confirm, I mean, it's gone up to 3 stories, not just because of the design, but it was to put in a lift, because without it being the 3 stories, the lift wouldn't work. Is that right?
Thank you, Councillor. So if I jump, if you can see, try and see the details. So then, this is what the floor plan of what's proposed. So yes, you're correct, and as the applicant sort of very clearly explained, effectively the top floor, so now we're on the right-hand side of your screen, that's what's proposed to be the top floor, so that's 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and as the applicant set out, that's for the applicant's parents, effectively. So the applicant's parents have their own floor, their own sort of living space, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom on the top floor, which is accessed by a lift as well. So that's what's proposed. What's already approved is still 2 bedrooms in that top floor, and actually 2 ensuite bathrooms rather than 1 bathroom, but either way it's still 2 bedrooms, so hence the number of bedrooms still adds up. In the view of officers, we completely understand where the applicant is coming from. We understand the applicant's concerns, and we understand the applicant's wish and desire to have that top floor accessed by a lift for elderly parents. We don't have any issues with that in terms of its concept. However, in officers' view, we feel that still the same number of bedrooms are incorporated in an extant scheme that does have an approval, and effectively it would be to the applicant and the applicant's parents to come to an arrangement where the same scenario can effectively be built into the existing property. if that makes sense. So another option that could be used, it's not proposed but could be used, would be to utilise some of the ground floor space for the same purpose. So for the parents, effectively on the ground floor, on the basis that already, if I jump back to the existing, there's already effectively an annex set up as part of the ground floor property as well. So our view is that we're not seeking to for the applicant to not live with their parents. That's not where we're coming from. We just feel there's a different design solution to get to the same end point. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further people wishing to speak? Thank you. Sorry. Oh, Councillor Kerr.
Can I just satisfy my own mind? I presume that any opportunity of a compromise in some fashion has already been explored. I mean, is there any opportunity to look at some sort of modification to it to mitigate the effect that we're talking about?
Thank you, Councillor. Effectively, that is the approved scheme. So originally, the applicant submitted a very similar scheme to what's now proposed, the difference being the flat roof versus the pitch roof. So I'm looking across the applicant's nodding. But yeah, effectively, we've already been through that process to get to the point of the approved scheme. Yeah, thank you.
Are there any further comments on this application? So we've had a motion to approve the application, moved by Councillor Gibbons and seconded by Councillor Hodgkins. Please raise your hand now if you're voting for the application, and keep your hand raised until Becky has counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Against? 4. The application, therefore, is approved. Thank you very much indeed. We will now move on to item 9. Is it 9 or 10? 10. Appeals update, please. Could I ask Chris to update us?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Since we last met, Planning Committee, we have 2 updates for you. So the 2 updates, so right at the bottom on decisions received, so the reference 25-00467 HOU 163 Commentary Road, Hinckley, that appeal was dismissed. That was on amenity issues and with regards to impact on character and appearance. That was dismissed. The other one that's not listed in decisions received that's come forward since the agenda was published is reference 25-00298 FUL, so top of the same page, New Farm, Hinckley Road, Cadeby. This one was also dismissed as well, so that was dismissed again on character and appearance and received on the 3rd of February. So they're the 2 updates I've got for you. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Chris on appeals? No? Then, well, thank you very much. That concludes the meeting for this evening, and I thank you for your attendance, and please have a safe journey home. I close the meeting at 7:50. Thank you very much indeed.